Hello, Gator Country. Seth Varnadore here. I'm joined by a very special guest today, Gator greats, college head coach, and my former boss, Jerry Odom. Coach Odom, how are you doing today?
I am doing outstanding, Seth. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. When I started thinking about the SEC championship game, started thinking about the great offenses that we're going to be playing, I wanted to get a great defensive mind in here to kind of dissect how you may be able to stop those offenses. Coach Odom is the best defensive coach I've ever been around, so I thought I would pick his brain, and he's nice enough to make some time for us. Coach, why don't you kind of describe your career at Florida? Coach
Okay.
Odom, for you young Gators may not know,
Yeah.
has a long history at the University of Florida. So, Coach, why don't you tell us that?
Okay. Well, I'm an old guy. Basically, I just turned 52. So I was on Coach Spurrier's first, I call it the first conference championship team, right? 1990. Was a Gator from 1887 to 91. Graduated in 91. Didn't redshirt, so I played 3 years for Galen Hall, 1 year for Coach Spurrier, which could have been more. Loved him. Still do. But, I was a second-generation Gator. My dad was also a linebacker guard in the 60s, and I was probably the smallest linebacker in Gator history that played a lot, I would guess, or one of them. I'm 5'10", probably 215, 220, and 5'10" might be pushing it. But at the end of the day, I was fortunate enough after I got done playing to get into coaching. Did some time there at Florida as the linebacker coach for several years before with Coach Spurrier before he went off to Washington. Then I did a year with Coach Zook, and then got a defensive coordinator job at East Carolina. Was there for 2 or 3 years. Got out of college for a little bit. Did some high school ball in South Georgia. Then got back in, or did some arena football, believe it or not. Worked for Bon Jovi up in Philly, which is kind of cool. And then got back into college ball there with Kerwin Bell. And Kerwin and I were together for 6 or 7 years, won a lot of football games at Jacksonville University, and then was able to parlay that into the head coach here at Tusculum University. We're a D2 university in southeastern Tennessee. I'm dead smack in the middle of Vol country, which I was happy the Gators played that one well. So I got a little bragging rights up here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the year I was up there was the year they lost, and I remember I could hear fireworks being set off in my neighborhood. So I knew we were in deep.
Yep.
So, Coach, you've always coached on the defensive side of the ball. How much more difficult? I don't think people understand how much more difficult it is to coach defense nowadays, where even like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would say that's a great statement. I'd say in the last 10 years, football on the defense side of the ball has become extremely hard. Because basically, if you put it like this, is the field is 53 1/3 yards wide, right? And you've got to defend every blade of grass width and then vertical throws. And what people are doing is they're putting your safeties and your linebackers in conflict more and more and more. So basically you have got 2 plays going at the same time. You may have an outside zone or a counter or some kind of pin and pull run scheme to one side, and then they're throwing what I consider the RPO is just a double option. You're either throwing it sideways on a bubble or you're throwing it down the field off the back of somebody's head. But what basically people are doing is running double and triple option concepts with spread running plays all out of the gun, all as fast as they can absolutely go. So there's only so much that you can do. Like what it does when they start going fast to go along with that stuff is they try to limit the calls that you make. And they try to put your players in conflict by going fast. And then, what their bet is that you're going to play 10 plays, and out of 8 of those, you may play them perfect, but those other 2, they may score a touchdown and hit their head on the goalpost. And they spread the field so much that they're vertical running lanes everywhere. So what you've got to be able to do is have a system defensively that has a string in it that you're able to run multiple concepts with 1 and 2 word calls. And that's really what we've gone to. And it's almost by necessity because you're getting it at every level. I think the second reason that the game's got a lot harder is back when I played, guys like Emmitt Smith and Bo Jackson and people like that played in the backfield. Now Emmitt Smith and Bo Jackson got the ball in their hand every time playing quarterback. And what happens is you're seeing all these 7-on-7 leagues and things like that. These kids are growing up in AAU wise, and the best athlete on the field is no longer always at wide receiver, running back. They're at quarterback, and they're slinging the ball from a very young age. So they're throwing the ball vertically, and they can run like Lamar Jackson, or things like that. Obviously not everybody's Lamar Jackson, but what that does is it puts you in so much conflict that you have to play what I used to call 11-on-11 football, or what I call 11-on-11 football back when I was coming up. And then even when like Peyton Manning was at Tennessee, Peyton Manning, as good as he was at Tennessee, he was still a caddy. And what I mean by that is he was handing the club to Tiger Woods. Like he was throwing the ball to Alvin Harper and handing the ball off to different people, like that. Where now he would still be throwing the ball and handing the ball to those people, but now he would also be a weapon also. And that's really what you're working on. You're not playing 10-on-11 anymore. You're playing 11-on-11. Back when I played, and even when I coached at Florida in the early 2000s, when I coached linebackers there, we were really good. I think we were top 10 every year I was coaching there. But if you look at what we played, it was some Tampa 2 and then a lot of it was 3-roll one way, stronger week, and then play some man-free stronger week. But we were 8-man front. Right now, if you're playing a lot of 1-high 8-man front and they're reading the end, right, and the quarterback can run, well, if one's in the post and when you're reading one of them, then you're down 2. So they're playing basically at that point, they're playing 11-on-9. Yeah. So and that's how they look at it. And so I think those big factors, along with, like I said earlier, tempo, have really made defense a lot harder.
Yeah. And what team that is kind of right at the top of that chart, running plays at tempo and putting you in conflict, is Alabama.
Amen.
They can, they use tempo. They get in a lot of different formations. They use their personnel. Right. They move guys around. They can run the ball well, and they have a diverse run game with zone stuff and gap stuff. And then they have some dudes out at receiver. Obviously, Devontae Smith is, I think he's in some places the leading Heisman candidate right now.
And he should be.
Yeah. So when you're going in to face a team like that that's just loaded, what are you kind of thinking? Is this one where Mac Jones not being that athletic guy, you can maybe get some more advantages or get tilted the math back in your favor a little bit?
I think you number one, when you look at Alabama, the thing that they do really well, even with Tua, right? When it kind of started with Tua a couple of years ago, is they throw the RPO game so well, and they're going to read, so they're not going to let you plus people in to the running game. Does that make sense? Like they're going to hold you with the RPO game, because then you've got to decide, if I plus somebody into the RPO game and now we come one-on-one outside and we miss Devontae on a slant, it's going 70 to the house. Yeah. And Mac Jones, what he is, he's a very efficient passer. He's accurate. He is smart. He understands their scheme. And he's a lot like, if you really look at him and Kyle Trask are a lot of the same guy, and they're going to get the ball in playmakers' hands. And that's what they're doing. I think what you got to do with Alabama, and it all starts up front, personally. The reason I think Alabama's they're always good up front. It rarely gets talked about. Najee Harris gets talked about, Mac Jones, those guys get talked about, but their front, they got some animals up there.
Yeah, they have multiple NFL guys up front.
Amen.
Maybe all 5 of them.
Right, 100%. And on top of it, they play that way. Like they play with that nastiness and they play physically. So if Florida stands a chance, if I was trying to defend them, it's got to start up front, and you got to do some things to make their job a little bit harder. Whether you game it, whether you stun it, do some things to make them think a little bit. Change your front, change your bubble, make them work through some things in their zone game. If they got a gap scheme, something, give them a couple different looks off the gap scheme. I think it starts there as far as giving them a couple different looks. Now, that being said, you got to keep your run fits square. So you got, and that's really systematic, because at the end of the day, if you don't hold off RPOs, he's going to just dice you up throwing RPOs all day. So a lot of times it's about pushing the ball where you want it to be, I think, with maybe the front and maybe some stunts, alignments, blitzes, things like that. to give yourself at least somewhat of a chance, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that they do really well is they can go up tempo. They're not super fast, but they can go fast when they want to.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that's overrated or underrated with their game is how good Najee Harris is out of the backfield.
Yes.
Like when you look at this guy, he's their second leading receiver, right? He's their leading rusher, but he doesn't ever need to come off the field. He'll pick up blitzes. Like you see, he's a true 3-down back, and that's what's pretty impressive about him. But I think for Florida, I think the biggest thing that I've seen from them that they got to do is get lined up. Get lined up and know your assignment, right? And then play fast, because I think if you've watched a lot of Florida this year, I think when they struggle, it's when they get a little discombobulated. That's probably the best way to put it. Whether it's on the back end, or fronts. So I'm not coaching that group. I don't know their strengths or weaknesses, so I don't want to attest to that.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're going to play Alabama, you've got to be sound fundamentally up front first, and understand that they're going to make some plays on you, right? But yes. You got to – I think the game's really gone like this. You got to create – I think for Florida to get going, you got to do some things to create some turnovers, right? You got to find a way to get a couple turnovers in this game. You got to really work hard in the red zone, which listen, that's what they're doing. Come on now. I mean, what I'm telling you, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying what I think they need to do. Like, they're going to have to be unbelievable in the red zone, because Alabama's going to move the ball Saturday. Yeah. If you think they're not, you've lost your mind.
Just for reference, that Alabama's number one third down conversion, I think they're about 60% on the year, which is insane.
Right. They're going to move. They're scoring 50 a game.
Yeah.
They're going to move the ball. So, but what you've got to really do is say, okay, it's almost like I coached arena football for a while, right? And we called stops and half stops. So in arena football, if you got one stop a game and 4 half stops, you usually won the game, because, it's a short field. Everybody's going to score. Half stop meant you kicked the field goal instead of scored a touchdown. So really, if I'm going into this game and I'm Florida, I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking for about 4 stops somewhere throughout this game. It could be a turnover. It could be, a punt, a turnover. Anything they do is a win, right? A field goal is a win.
Yeah.
But now Florida's offense is going to have to match them. Yeah. Now, to do that, I think you bottom line, you got to tackle on the back end. You got to mix up the coverages enough on Jones to make him think, to hold the ball a little bit more, but at the same time, you can't have your own guys busted.
Yeah.
That makes sense? Like, you can't be so exotic. You're like, we're getting
somebody totally misses.
Yeah, we can't have dudes like nobody in the same zip code as a receiver or something, because we had a bust. So I think that, and then, listen, to me, and this sounds crazy, but Florida, the way I might go into this thing is, we're playing for the SEC championship. It's huge. But really, you're playing with the house's money, because nobody thinks you're going to win this football game. Not after what happened last week with LSU. They beat LSU by 50. So I think you can take some chances. Yeah. But you got to understand, if you take them, make them calculated chances. Like, when you're playing a team like this, that's as good as they are, and they have a 3-headed monster, you got to figure out what you're going to do. Now, I think winning first down on any tempo team is huge, right? When you look at UCF, you look at Alabama, the times that they've gotten knocked off the field, really fast teams, is when even Florida, is when you can knock them back on first down. You make them second and long, right? Because now, then you can start saying, okay, it's second and long. Now we can bring in a dime package, do some kind of run stunt for draws, or, zones into the boundary if they, or if they go, FSL. A lot of people are going, formation into the sideline a lot and running the ball on second down. But if you got some tips on that, that's pretty good. But I think the biggest part of that would be like to take Devontae out of the game one way or another. Try to double him, have different ways to double him, second and third and long situations. Make somebody else beat you, right? You're going to have to take some calculated risks that say, okay, I may have to put a really good athlete on Najee, covering him out of the backfield, but I got to find a way to double and make one of these other guys beat me. And make Matt go through the progression. Like, okay, we're trying to get Devontae on this double move. Well, boom, they took that away. Najee's got pretty tight coverage on him. Now I got to go to somebody else to beat me. And I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying, if you're calculating your risks and you're playing a guy that has 83 catches, and the next guy has 39 catches, which is Najee, and then the next guy after that is like 25. Now you're saying, okay, I'm gonna take you almost have to take the chance, but getting that 3rd and 7 to 3rd and 8 is going to be huge for Florida to have a chance to win this game, because if they stay in 3rd and 5, your life as a defensive guy, as a defensive person who's called 20 years of defense, it's a nightmare, especially when you're playing.
That's when they can really put you in that conflict, right? They can run RPO, play action. Yeah. They could run the ball. That's really when you're right in that no man's land, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing with the 3rd and 5 aspect of it, or 3rd and 4 to 6, like we call it, I think the other thing is so many people nowadays go for it. I mean, they can be on the 49-yard line. They're going to go for it because they know they're going to score points. I mean, that's how the mindset, the analytics, more and more people are going to this analytics stuff where they're going for it on their own 41-yard line. And, so if they get to a 4th and 1, 4th and 2, you better have some things that you're ready to call there too. I think that's the change. Like I said, I coached in arena football and played it for a while, and the game, people are laughing at me, but it's kind of moved toward that. If you go back to the game they almost lost to Ole Miss, right? That was basically a arena football game, right? I mean, they're back and forth to the point where I'm laughing, and I think I even I was joking on Twitter, like, hey, Ole Miss is going to onside kick right here just like they would in arena because they're down a score. Sure enough, they did. Yeah. But I think that's what's happening when you have two dynamic offenses like you're going to see. I think you're going to see some people take some chances. I think up front, like I said, you got to change the bubble. If you're in a 4-man front, Florida plays kind of a hybrid. Like they'll go under, they'll go 50. It's kind of a 3-4 hybrid where they can do a lot of different things with it. They're just going to change those things up. I think the biggest thing is on at least first down and, first and second and medium is being physical in the running game. If they establish the running game, which are really good, we set it up front. I think it's a long road home for the Gators because now they're picking you apart off everything else. But I think you got to be careful, and that's where the D-line's got to play out of their minds this week, is they're going to have to make plays, because, whether it's stunts, whether it's, like I said, blitzes, changing, late stems, whatever the case may be, they're going to have to make some plays because you can't add in that extra guy because Mac Jones is so good at the RPO.
Yeah, and you can't give them a static picture up front, right? Because
correct. Well, and in the back end, I think pre-snap, you see so many people like, you got to show one high and be able to go to get the two, whether, a couple different ways, if you're in a two high or, or a quarter shell or whatever the case may be, and vice versa, and you got to constantly make Mac Jones think, and be able to do that. But it takes that quarterback on the field, that safety who's running the show or whatever else. And they almost have to be on a string a little bit. Like they got to be moving in unison so that it looks right. But I think we got to find a way, for Florida has to find a way to make him hold the ball and then get through a progression and then make somebody else beat you other than, Najee and Devontae, if that's possible. When you got a 3-headed prong attack, we're asking big things here. Yeah. Like they're going to have to miss some throws too.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, flipping it for the Florida offense, you're well versed in Coach Saban's defense.
Yeah.
How do you think Florida's going to attack it, and how do you think Saban is going to try to play Florida? I know he's been close with Belichick in the past, and Belichick's sometimes done that where he'll double the number one guy. You think that's what they're going to double Pitts the whole game? And how do you think they're going to play it?
I could see that, but the issue is Florida's shown they're good enough other places that it may be hard to, like, if you double Pitts every single time. Well, like Georgia was trying to do that. Georgia looked like they were playing with something that, we play, we've done it in the past some too, because I think I got it from Muschamp, who got, him and Kirby and all those guys, same stuff, is they were on a backside 3-by-1. If you remember what Florida did to Georgia, is they knew they were going to get some kind of bracket coverage on Pitts off of his release. Outside release, they're going to get one thing. Inside the release, they're going to get another, depending on who was going to cut him safety or corner. But what that does, and if you try to double him, is you lock the back on the linebacker,
right? Yeah.
Right? And so you looked at it, and I thought Dan did a heck of a job of understanding what they were trying to do with the linebacker, and then taking advantage of it. Because if you look, I mean, I think they caught 240 or 250 yards worth of balls.
Yeah, on a lot of wheel route right? Out of the backfield.
They ran wheels, they ran angle routes, they ran breaks, they ran snags, and they really worked people over that way. So, Saban's the best in the game, or one of them. So they're not gonna, they'll have a change up obviously off that. They'll have a couple different variations. I think the thing that you do at Pitts, though, is if you really want to see what they're going to do, go 4x1 empty, right? Go 3x1 and then motion the back out, because now they got to tell their hand, right? If not, because if you go 4x1 empty on third down and one guy stays over there, you know where you're going. You simplify the read for your quarterback.
And that's something we saw Florida do against Tennessee.
They did.
I think they put Pitts and Tony on the same side, then motioned Tony across, got the 1-on-1 through the slant backside.
Exactly. And so that helps. That helps. With that. Anytime you get a 4x1 away, then they've got to make some decisions, and that's really where Florida's backs, to me, are vastly underrated. They don't get near enough credit, really, for some of the catches that they've made this year. They dropped one, but it was almost an unbelievable catch against LSU, even on the wheel route last week. But I just remember, over and over, and it's not just one back. It's all three of those guys catch the ball really well that they've been playing. So when you have a guy like that, and now you can line him up inside of the 3x1 or outside of the 3x1 when they motion, Now what are you going to do? Are you going to bump the coverage? And you don't want a corner out there, and then now all of a sudden you've got a big 6'4" number 8 or you got Tony on a backer.
Yeah.
So I think Dan does a really, really good job of figuring out matchups. He's a big matchup guy to me, and you look, and he's going to sit there and he's going to try to formation you to death and find your weak link, especially in the passing game. And then I think the great thing about Trask is he's been processing that part real well. Yeah. But Dan's done a great job of giving him some really fairly simple reads a lot of times to what he's looking for. Like you look last week, even when they were struggling and they were getting a little push, he rolled the pocket 2 or 3 times, ran what I call a bench sail, kind of an inside fade with a sail by 3, and ran a bench route, knowing that backer couldn't get underneath and they're going to have to stay on top because they were playing Stubby outside. And they were trying to press that. And Stubby's like a man-on-one, kind of a 3-over-2 on the other guys. And they kept hitting him on that. And that's where I like I said, Dan sees it, man. I mean, like when I'm watching, because I don't watch the game. Like, I don't watch the ball at all. I usually try to watch the coverage off the first 4 or 5 steps until I can't see it anymore to try to see what they're playing. But, he does a really, really good job of putting your guys in conflict that way. I think the issue for Florida is number one, Alabama's really good in coverage, right? So they may think, okay, in our dime package, we can match up. But I think what Florida's got to be able to do is run the ball a little bit. Yeah. I mean, they just hadn't been able to do that consistently. I felt like earlier in the year, kind of mid-year, they were starting to kind of come into their own with that. But if you look at the last 2 games, they ain't running a lick. So I'm a little worried about that, because you can't let those Alabama pass rushers just grease it up for 4 quarters, on Trask. They're going to hit him eventually and cause a turnover. But I think you'll see, like, if they're going to cover 2 blitz you, he's going to – I know this. Saban will always try to blitz the back if he can, like for that same reason we talked about, trying not to let the 5th guy out, because if you blitz the back, then most of the time the back's thinking, I got to stay in for protection. Yeah. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. And then they're trying to get one-on-ones other places. Like, they're not always trying to get home on a free guy, but they're blitzing the back to get you somewhere else.
Yeah, get to one-on-one somewhere else. Yeah.
So they're going to – I can see them mixing up cover 2, but they're going to play a good bit of man. They're going to play, their quarters, palms, concepts. And the thing that always has been a little bit of the kryptonite of a Nick Saban defense to me, just watching it, and this is obviously layman because I'm not him, but outside looking in, is tempo. Like, going fast. I mean, you see over the last, 4 or 5 years, I mean, even Ole Miss this year, right? Yeah. Teams going fast, struggling. And I asked several guys who worked on his staffs in the past, I've been able to pick their brain, why is that? And they said that they've tried to go to some one-word stuff, but his stuff's so specific, you know, and how they cover certain things. It's hard for them to get all that out.
Yeah.
And I think that could be another way maybe to attack Alabama's defense.
Yeah. From a head coaching perspective, right? Last year we saw Florida when they played a dynamic offense in LSU try to hold the ball a little bit more offensively. How would you approach this game as a head coach? Would you have the offense try to hold the ball a little bit longer, or do you just try to get in a kind of just, hey, we play better if we're going up tempo? We just got to play that way.
I think you got to go to the dance with the girl that brought you, you know, and I think for them, that's scoring points, man, you know, because like I said, I just right now, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see the Gator defense, you know, that they're in for, to me, possibly a long night unless they play really, really good football, probably better than they have the last couple of years or games, obviously. Yeah. I thought they were getting better at Kentucky, but Kentucky's just not very good on offense. I mean, right? Yeah. And honestly, I think the LSU game, I thought they played hard. They just didn't play very smart, obviously, all the time.
Had a few busts back there.
Yeah, you know, all that stuff. That you get 2 busts. I mean, just complete busts for 14 points, right? Yeah. You know, and then we don't get points early in that game on offense, which, you know, I mean, you kind of go down and so for me, getting back to your original question, I think they just got to try to score, man. Yeah. I don't think like if you say, oh, we got to help the defense, then do you take the mojo that you've been playing with all year away? I mean, you know, it's going to this game to me should be you know, if it's in Florida's favor and Florida wins the game, it's going to be like 50-45 or 50-47. Yeah. I mean, I just don't see it happening any other way. I just don't want it to be 65-20 or 65-28 or something crazy like that. But, you know, let me tell you something. I think Dan has done a fabulous job, you know, with this team. People do not understand how hard it is to coach right now in this COVID world that we're in, right? I'm thanking the good Lord for this vaccine. Hopefully it gets out to everybody pretty quick and we get some kind of normalcy because, you know, I know just for my own situation in a D Division II, you know, place, it's super hard. And I can't imagine the amount of testing and everything else that these guys have gone through. And I think sometimes fans get so passionate about their team. And even me at times, you know, I'm a fan too, you know, that gets lost somewhere. And like, hey, these guys have done a heck of a job keeping this thing going and they got to keep it going, you know?
All right, let's talk about your team. You guys had your season flipped. So you guys did like spring practice. You guys were doing spring practice in the fall, and you're going to be playing coming up in the spring, correct?
Yeah, playing in the spring. We're just a 6-game season right now, all conference games. Hey, listen, our kids deserve it. They've been through so much. I just want them to get a chance to play. And, you know, to a man, I asked our kids, I'm like, hey, guys, you know, what do you think about this? And they're like, we want to play, you know, because, you know, I heard a lot of, well, you know, if we play 6 or 7 games, then you turn around in 3 months, you got to play another season. But, you know, these guys are kids, man. They just want to play football. And I think that they're excited about it. You know, we had a good fall, I thought, for the most part. You know, COVID's tough. I mean, it was tough. I mean, getting practices in, but I was really happy with the amount of progress that we made. I think we got a really good young coaching staff. I'm excited about those guys. And we had a chance to be, I think, pretty good.
Yeah. And you brought in a name that will be familiar to Gator fans, that offensive coordinator. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you brought in there?
Yeah, Cade Bell, Kerwin Bell's son, is my offensive coordinator and does a phenomenal job. He's young. He's 27 years old, but, you know, I think he's one of these guys that I don't expect him to be with me super long. No. I think he's going to be very successful at what he does. You know, he really understands football. Did a great job a couple years ago for his dad. They were about Valdosta State in 2018, called the offense there when they won the national championship. So getting, you know, Cade went last year as a quality control guy to USF. Don't think he was real happy in that role. Just, you know, hard. You know, some guys that are used to coaching, especially a high energy guy like him, just didn't enjoy that. I got to stand around and watch other people coach. And, you know, Cade's kind of a, you know, live by my id type guy. And he was, you know, I'm sure he struggled with that. But very, very, very happy with what I've seen so far from those guys. He brought in really that big group that was with him there at Valdosta State. They're all younger guys. I'm the old head on staff, but I'm really enjoying them, and I think our players are too.
Yeah. So for all you fans out here, let me tell you a great story about Coach Odom and how much of a Gator fan he still is at heart. We had a quarterback in on a recruiting visit. We were watching a basketball game. It was the same day Florida was playing LSU when the game got pushed back in 2016. A nice older lady was sitting in front of us with her iPad, and she had the game on. And he tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Ma'am, could you hold that up a little bit higher?" And we watched the end of the Florida LSU game on this recruiting visit. And when Florida made the goal line stop, Coach jumped up in the air, pumped his fist.
Yeah,
regardless of what was happening on the basketball court.
I don't think we had anything good going on the basketball court. People were looking around like, what is this idiot doing? But yeah, I'm a passionate second generation Gator fan. My wife went to Florida. I mean, we bleed orange blue around here, and living in Knoxville area, I'm about 45 miles east of Knoxville, but in the East Tennessee area, lovely town. I love living here. It's a great place, but I don't get to say "Go Gators" quite enough. Let's just say that, because I'm trying to recruit a lot of these kids. I don't want to. And I tell you what, they get offended really quick when you start throwing that Gator name around. But it's been a great place, and it's always great to be a Gator.
Yeah. And so if you need a spring football team, which I'm sure you will, basketball's fun, baseball's fun, but if you need a spring team, Tusculum University, they broadcast all their games, TusculumPioneers.com.
Yeah.
Do you guys got any shops or anything going right now for fundraising that people can
go
to?
We just got done with one, but hey, we always need your support, and we'll be streaming all our games live. We're in the South Atlantic Conference, and we should have a really good group this year. Got a lot of Florida guys on our team, about 55, on our team. So we got a lot of probably people that you may know from your community, and we'd love to have you on, watching our games. And if we can be the second of your fandom, I'd be honored.
Yeah, they should be every Gator fan's second favorite team.
There you
go. University Pioneers. Coach, what's your Twitter so people can follow you and see some of these announcements?
It's at TU Coach O.
At TU Coach O. We'll put that up here too so you guys can see it. Coach, thank you so much for making time. I know you're busy with recruiting and getting ready for the season to start up. So I appreciate you making time for us and kind of explaining how a veteran coach like yourself would approach this game.
Absolutely, man. Great seeing you again, and thank you for having me on.
No problem.